The galaxy was vast, bigger than anyone could imagine. Stars shone like diamonds scattered across black velvet, and planets orbited in silence. For centuries, humans had explored the edges of their star systems, slowly spreading into nearby space. They had built colonies, outposts, and fleets, but the known regions of the galaxy were only a fraction of what truly existed. Beyond the maps and sensors lay the unknown, a place that even the oldest alien civilizations had avoided. Captain Elena Riker sat in the command chair of the SS Horizon, her eyes scanning the endless void ahead. The ship was small, designed for exploration, not war. It carried only a handful of crew and basic defensive systems. They were on a mission to chart a new sector, a region where no human or alien had ventured before. For Elena, the thrill of the unknown was part of the job. Yet today, something felt different. The usual quiet hum of the ship was broken by the soft, insistent beeping of the navigation console. "Captain," Lieutenant Arun said, leaning over the console, "we are picking up something. Multiple signals. They're huge, like a fleet. And they're moving fast, towards us." Elena's brow furrowed. "Show me," she said. The screen lit up with blinking points, hundreds of them moving in formation. This was no natural phenomenon. It was a fleet. And it was coming directly toward human space. "How is this possible?" Arun whispered. "No species has ever been this far out. Not even the Dravari. Not even the ancient colonies we've heard of. This is new." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She had faced dangerous situations before, but nothing prepared her for the unknown. The galaxy had always feared humans, yes, but that fear was mixed with curiosity. Most species assumed humans were reckless, primitive, unpredictable, but they had not expected humanity to boldly reach regions that were thought unreachable. And now, the unknown was arriving at their doorstep. In the observation deck, the crew watched in awe as the alien fleet appeared on the edge of the sensor range. Ships unlike anything humans had seen before, enormous and angular, gliding silently through space. They were unlike the fleets described in the archives. These ships did not shimmer or glow, they absorbed light, dark and ominous, as if space itself feared to touch them. The galaxy, for once, held its breath. Across neighboring systems, alien observers transmitted messages to their home worlds. "Humans are at the edge," they said. "They are not alone." And the reactions were predictable. Most assumed humans would panic. Most assumed humans would hide, retreat, or prepare for war. That was what every species did when faced with the unknown. Fear was natural. Fear was survival. But humans were about to show them something entirely different. Elena turned to her crew. "We have one option," she said, her voice steady. "We meet them. We do not hide. We do not threaten. We just go and see." Lieutenant Arun swallowed. "You mean, send a single ship? Alone?" "Alone," Elena confirmed. "We are not armed for war. Our weapons are minimal. This is exploration. If they want peace, they will see it. If they want war, they will learn something about humans they will never forget." The crew exchanged nervous glances. The odds were terrifying. A single small human ship against an unknown fleet, against creatures that could easily wipe out planets. And yet, there was no fear in Elena's eyes. Only determination. Outside, the fleet slowed, halting at the border of human space. The alien leaders, whatever they were, watched carefully. Their ships formed a perfect semicircle, scanning, calculating, but not advancing. The humans did not retreat. The humans did not attack. They simply waited. In the alien council chambers aboard the flagship, the leaders debated. They had encountered species before, species that hid, species that fled, species that begged for mercy, but never had they seen a species that looked at them without fear. "Why do they not run?" one of them hissed. Its voice was like metal scraping against stone. "They are small. They are weak. They should know their place." "They are different," another replied cautiously. "There is something unyielding about them. I do not understand. They do not tremble. They do not plead. They simply exist." Back on the horizon, Elena gave the order. "Open a channel. Send our greetings. We are explorers. We mean no harm. The message was simple. No threats. No demands. Just words of peace. A gesture that, in the history of the galaxy, would seem naive, even foolish. Most species would have sent a fleet in response, would have hidden behind defenses, would have tried to intimidate. But humans had a different way of showing strength. They did not need to shout. They did not need to fire first. They simply stood their ground. The alien fleet paused as the message arrived. Hundreds of alien sensors scanned the small ship, its hull fragile against the massive construct surrounding it. There was no panic. There was no aggression. And for the first time, confusion spread among them. "What is this?" a leader asked. "Why do they not fear us?" "They are calm," another whispered, almost afraid to speak. "It is unnatural. It is terrifying." On the horizon, Elena watched the alien ships with steady eyes. She knew they were being studied, analyzed, perhaps even underestimated. But humans did not live by fear. Humans survived because they adapted. Humans thrived because they faced the unknown with courage, even when the odds were impossible. Lieutenant Arun broke the silence. "Captain, what if they attack?" Elena smiled faintly, a calm that made her crew uneasy but also inspired them. "Then we fight. But not with hatred. Not with rage. We fight to protect. And maybe, just maybe, they will see something in us that no one has seen before." The first step had been taken. A single human ship, small and fragile, was now the focus of an alien fleet. Across the galaxy, eyes turned toward this moment. Scholars, leaders, and observers transmitted their messages in disbelief. Humans had always been bold, sometimes reckless, often unpredictable, but this was something else entirely. 4 hours, nothing happened. The fleet remained on the border, scanning. The humans sent no weapons. They made no aggressive moves. They simply drifted forward, their sensors active, their minds alert. The galaxy expected panic, expected chaos, but all that came was calm. Captain Elena knew that the moment was delicate. One wrong move, one display of aggression, could start a war that no one could contain. But for now, humans had the upper hand. Not because of weapons or numbers, but because of something far rarer, courage. As the alien fleet finally sent a representative ship forward, a sleek black vessel unlike any human design, Elena leaned forward. The message from the aliens was simple but charged with tension. "State your purpose," it demanded, its words echoing strangely in the horizon's communication array. Elena's response was steady. "We are humans. We explore. We do not fight without reason. We do not fear the unknown, and we hope you do not either." The silence that followed was heavier than any battle. The alien ship circled the horizon, scanning, calculating, sensing something it could not comprehend. Humans were supposed to run. Humans were supposed to beg or hide. But they did not. They stood, fragile yet unyielding, in the face of the unknown. Finally, the alien ship retreated slightly, as if taking a step back to rethink. In the observation deck of the horizon, the crew held their breath. They had made contact. They had faced the unknown without fear. And the galaxy was watching, astonished. Somewhere far beyond, alien scholars and historians began to realize that humans were not ordinary. They were not predictable. They were not weak. And perhaps, they were the first species that truly understood what it meant to confront fear without being consumed by it. As the horizon drifted forward, continuing its mission of exploration, Elena allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. The galaxy was full of threats, full of mysteries that no human had yet unraveled. But for the first time, she felt that humans had a place among the stars, not as victims, not as pawns, not as prey, but as equals, unafraid and unbroken. And in that quiet, vast darkness, the first lesson of the humans became clear. Fear existed for everyone else, but not for them. The unknown had arrived. And for the first time in galactic history, the unknown was uncertain. The horizon drifted silently through the void, its small hull dwarfed by the shadow of the alien fleet that had paused at the border of human space. Every crew member felt the weight of history pressing down on them. This was no ordinary encounter. This was a moment that could shape the future of humanity in the galaxy. Outside, the stars seemed to hold their breath, as if the universe itself recognized the significance of this meeting. Captain Elena Riker stood on the bridge, her eyes locked on the dark shapes of alien ships, their edges sharp, alien, and unsettling. They were enormous, impossibly advanced, yet motionless, like predators circling a small but courageous prey. And though they had not attacked, their presence alone was enough to make any species tremble. Yet Elena felt only determination, and a quiet fire that spread to her crew. "We have to communicate," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We cannot leave them guessing. They do not understand who we are yet." Lieutenant Arun nodded, fingers dancing over the console. The communication systems of the horizon were activated, sending a simple, clear signal into the void. "We are humans," Elena dictated. "We explore. We do not fight without reason. We are not your enemies. We hope you are not ours." The message was simple. There were no threats, no boasts, no demands. It was pure, unarmed honesty, a human trait that had confused countless alien species before. Elena knew that most of these creatures would interpret weakness as opportunity. They had never encountered a species that faced them without fear. And yet, in that vulnerability, there was strength, a kind of quiet courage that could not be calculated or crushed. Minutes passed. Hours, even, though time felt stretched and suspended in the weightless void. The alien fleet did not respond immediately. Their sensors scanned the horizon endlessly, measuring, analyzing, trying to detect weakness. The crew held their breaths. Every second felt like a lifetime. Lieutenant Mara, the communications officer, finally broke the silence. "Captain, they are replying. But..." She hesitated, unsure how to describe what she was seeing. "It's strange. Their response is not aggression. It's curiosity." The alien transmission crackled through the ship's speakers, strange and resonant, vibrating through the hull. "Why do you approach us alone? Why do you not flee or hide? What drives your species to face the unknown without fear?" Elena stepped forward, her posture calm, her gaze steady. She knew that the aliens were testing them, trying to understand what humans were. "Because we are humans," she said, her voice carrying the weight of all those who had come before. "We explore. We learn. We protect our people. And we do not let fear decide our actions." Her words, though simple, carried a force the aliens could not anticipate. They expected fear, submission, hesitation, but humans gave them none of it. Instead, they were presented with clarity, with purpose, with courage that did not falter even in the face of the unimaginable. On board the horizon, emotions ran high. Some crew members felt fear bubbling just beneath the surface, but it was mixed with awe. They were witnessing history. They were human beings standing boldly against an entire unknown fleet, and the universe was watching them. Lieutenant Arun whispered to Mara, "Do you realize, we are the first humans to speak to an unknown species in the deepest reaches of space? They've never seen anything like us." Mara nodded, eyes wide, her hands trembling. "It's terrifying, and beautiful at the same time." Elena allowed herself a faint smile. "That is exactly how humans have always faced the impossible. We do not know if we will succeed, but we do not stop. We face the unknown with courage, and we leave our mark, even if it is small." The alien fleet remained still, as though trying to make sense of the human words. Some ships shifted slightly, others paused, almost hesitantly. It was the first sign that humans had disrupted the expectations of an entire alien armada. Their curiosity replaced fear, and in its place, a cautious respect began to emerge. Suddenly, one of the alien ships emitted a bright pulse, a signal directed entirely at the horizon. It was not an attack, but a probe of understanding, a way to communicate back in a language of patterns and vibrations. Lieutenant Arun worked quickly to decode the signal, his brow furrowed with concentration. They want to understand us," he said finally, disbelief in his voice. "They're asking why humans do not fear them, why we are so calm. They cannot understand it." Elena nodded. "Then we show them. We do not just tell them. We show them with our actions. We continue our mission. We observe, we learn, and we remain steady. That steadiness is our message." As hours turned into the long night of space, the horizon began to maneuver slightly, showing itself without aggression, moving with grace and precision. The alien fleet mirrored some of its movements, trying to anticipate, to predict, but humans were not predictable. Humans were fluid, adaptable, and unshakable. Emotions ran high in the crew quarters. Some were anxious, some excited, and some silently proud. Captain Elena walked among them, offering quiet words of reassurance. "You are not just crew members," she said softly. "You are the first humans they will remember. Every choice you make, every calm breath, every observation, it will shape their understanding of us. And we are showing them who humans truly are." Even among the alien fleet, there were stirrings of something new. Across their command systems, debates began. "Why are they not afraid?" one commander asked. "Why do they not run or beg or attack? They are small, fragile. They should not be standing against us like this." "They are human," another replied slowly, a hint of awe in its tone. "There is something in them. Something we cannot measure. Their courage is unnatural, terrifying." And it was true. Humans had always been considered reckless, brave to the point of foolishness, but never had a species confronted the unknown with such a balance of calm, intelligence, and courage. They did not fight out of anger. They did not flee out of fear. They simply faced the unknown as equals, as beings who belonged among the stars. For the horizon, time seemed to stretch endlessly. Days could have passed, or perhaps hours. Time was meaningless in the vast emptiness of space. The alien fleet did not attack, nor did it retreat. Instead, it watched, analyzed, and slowly, carefully, began to comprehend that humans were unlike any species they had encountered before. Lieutenant Mara whispered to Arun, her voice barely audible, do you think they respect us?" Arun shook his head slowly. "It's more than respect. They fear us. Not because we are violent, but because we are unbroken, because we are steady. They do not understand it. And that terrifies them." Captain Elena observed the alien fleet with steady eyes. She knew this was only the beginning. The first contact had been made. The human message had been delivered. And though no weapons had fired, though no ships had collided, history had been written in the calm courage of a single human crew facing an entire unknown fleet. Across the galaxy, broadcasts began to trickle in from nearby civilizations. Scholars, leaders, and observers noted the unprecedented behavior of humans. They did not flee. They did not attack. They stood boldly, sending a simple message: humans were here, and they were not to be underestimated. The horizon drifted forward, the stars reflecting on its hull, the crew working silently but with purpose. And in the silence of space, a quiet truth became clear. Humans were not defined by their size, their numbers, or their technology alone. They were defined by their courage, their unity, and their refusal to let fear dictate their actions. As the alien fleet finally began to shift, not toward attack, but toward cautious observation, Captain Elena allowed herself a moment to breathe. They had made contact. They had sent a message not of war, but of who humans truly were. And for the first time, the galaxy began to understand that humans were not like other species. They were something new, something unpredictable, something unbroken, and that understanding would echo across the stars forever. The silence of space was heavy, almost deafening, as the horizon continued its slow drift through the void. The alien fleet loomed at the borders, vast, silent, and enigmatic. No ships had fired, no weapons had activated, yet the tension was palpable. Every heartbeat on the horizon carried the weight of uncertainty. Every breath felt like it could shatter the fragile calm that held humanity's first contact with the unknown together. Captain Elena Riker stood on the bridge, her hands resting lightly on the console, eyes fixed on the dark silhouettes that stretched across the sensor array. The alien fleet was massive, composed of hundreds of ships, each one silent but alive with unseen energy, scanning, probing, measuring. Elena knew this was more than curiosity. They were testing them, testing humanity itself. The aliens wanted to see how humans would react when faced with overwhelming power, when fear should have dictated their actions, when instinct demanded retreat. "Captain," Lieutenant Arun said quietly, breaking the silence. His voice trembled slightly, betraying the unease the rest of the crew tried to hide. "They're preparing something. Their sensors indicate a probe fleet, small, unmanned ships, coming our way. They're observing us more closely now." It looks like a test. Elena nodded slowly. Then we will show them what it means to face humans. We will not hide, we will not panic. We will meet this challenge as we meet every other, together, steady and unbroken. The first probes arrived almost immediately. They shimmered in the darkness, sleek, precise, and unarmed, but their purpose was clear. This was not an attack to destroy. It was an attack to intimidate, to gauge the reactions of the human crew. Every maneuver, every choice would be studied, catalogued, analyzed. The aliens wanted to see whether humans would crumble under pressure, whether fear would cloud judgment. On the horizon, the crew sprang into action. Sensors tracked the probes, thrusters adjusted course, and communication channels lit up with coordinated responses. But there were no weapons fired, no rash decisions made. Humans acted with intelligence, with calm precision, each movement deliberate and careful. They intercepted one probe, guiding it away from critical systems, analyzing its design without panic. Every crew member felt a mix of adrenaline and awe. They were not just defending themselves, they were demonstrating humanity itself. Lieutenant Mara, monitoring the incoming signals, spoke with a mix of fear and excitement. "Captain, these probes are designed to provoke us. They are testing our reactions, every small movement. If we make a mistake, if we show fear, it will signal weakness. They'll know we're mortal, they'll know we can be broken." Elena's voice was calm, resolute, carrying the weight of her experience and leadership. "Then we will not give them weakness. We will act with purpose. We will meet the test, but on our terms. We will show them that fear does not guide humanity. Strategy, unity, and courage guide us." The first probe collided gently with the shields, sending a ripple across the horizon surface. Crew members held their breath. Sensors pinged, data streamed in, and Elena gave the order, "Capture it. Analyze it. Do not destroy. Learn from it. Show them we are not reckless, we are intelligent, deliberate, unshakable." 4 hours, the dance continued. Probes moved, humans countered, and the alien fleet watched silently from the darkness. Every interaction, every measured response, every calm decision added weight to a truth the aliens were struggling to comprehend. Humans were not like other species. They were unpredictable, fearless not because they were naive, but because they understood themselves, their purpose, and the value of calm courage. Yet the test was not without its emotional toll. Crew members worked tirelessly, their minds stretched to the limit. Anxiety and doubt crept into hearts despite the training and discipline. Elena moved among them quietly, offering words of reassurance, grounding their spirits. "Do not let fear dictate your actions," she told them. "We are more than the sum of our systems. We are human, and that means we endure, we adapt, we rise above what others think is impossible." At one point, a probe slipped past the shields, moving toward the engine core. The room erupted in tension. The sensors warned of impending collision, alarms blared softly, and crew members tensed for disaster. But Elena's steady voice cut through the panic. "Focus. Calm. We react, we adapt, we protect. Not with fear, but with clarity." The engineers redirected the shields, recalibrated the defensive arrays, and, with deliberate precision, intercepted the probe just meters from the core. The crew exhaled, relief and pride washing over them simultaneously. They had passed a small, dangerous test not with brute force, but with intelligence, coordination, and calm courage. Above them, the alien fleet observed every action. Discussions broke out among the alien leaders, debates filled with confusion and unease. They are coordinated. They do not panic. Even when we provoke them, they remain steady. How can such a fragile species display such control? "They are human," one replied quietly. "That is the danger. They are not predictable. They do not act like other species. They survive because they face challenges without fear. This is terrifying." Hours turned into days. The probes continued, more sophisticated, more challenging. Each time, humans met them with strategy, intelligence, and calm. Each time, the aliens were forced to adjust their expectations. Humanity did not react with violence unless necessary, did not flee unless necessary, and never let fear guide decisions. Every action was measured, deliberate, a testament to the strength of a species that had survived against impossible odds on its homeworld. On the horizon, the emotional weight of the encounter was felt deeply. Crew members found themselves exhausted yet exhilarated. Fear had been present, yes, but it had been transformed into focus. Anxiety had been transformed into determination. And in every human heart, pride and unity swelled, not arrogance, but the deep, quiet strength that comes from facing the impossible and standing unbroken. Lieutenant Arun, looking at the crew, whispered, "Captain, I think they are beginning to understand. Not all of them, but some. They are realizing that humans are not just another species to intimidate. We are something else. Something they cannot predict." Elena nodded slowly, her eyes scanning the alien fleet beyond the viewport. "Yes," she said softly. "And that is the beginning of what they will never forget. We are human. We endure, we adapt, we protect, and we face the unknown without fear. That is our message. That is our strength." By the end of the test, the Horizon had captured, analyzed, and survived every probe without firing a single weapon in anger. The alien fleet, massive and overwhelming, remained at the border, confused and cautious. They had sent these tests to intimidate, to provoke, to measure weakness, and had found none. Humans had faced the impossible with clarity, courage, and unwavering resolve. And somewhere, deep in the alien command centers, fear began to stir. Not the fear of violence, not the fear of power, but the fear of what humans represented. A species that could remain calm when every instinct screamed panic. A species that could survive against overwhelming odds without hatred or rage. A species that understood that true strength was not in destruction, but in courage, intelligence, and unity. On the horizon, Captain Elena allowed herself a small smile. The test was complete. Humans had passed, not by winning a battle, not by firing weapons, but by showing who they truly were. And the galaxy, for the first time, began to understand that humanity was unlike any other. The unknown had tested them. Humanity had risen. And the story of courage, intelligence, and unshakable resolve was only beginning. The calm of human space was shattered not by aggression, but by curiosity turned reckless. 4 days, the Horizon had stood as a symbol of human courage, intelligence, and unshakable calm, facing the alien fleet that had tested them with precision and patience. The aliens had learned that humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. They had observed the Horizon navigate every probe, every subtle threat. Without panic, without unnecessary aggression. They had begun to respect humanity, or at least, some of them had. But not all. In the upper echelons of the alien fleet, a commander, brash and impatient, grew frustrated. He did not understand humans. He had studied species across the galaxy for centuries, and none had reacted like this. Most had cowered, most had fled, most had lashed out without thinking. But humans had neither panicked nor lashed out. And that irritated him, enraged him, in ways that no other species had ever managed. He made a decision, a reckless decision. A minor human colony, lightly defended on the edge of mapped space, would be the target. It was small, unarmed, an easy strike that would show the aliens' power and intimidate humanity. The other commanders hesitated, warning him that humans were unpredictable, that they might not respond as expected. But he did not listen. His pride and arrogance clouded his judgment. The attack came swiftly. Alien ships descended on the colony like silent predators, deploying small strike drones designed to disable communication arrays and energy systems without massive destruction. The humans on the colony had little warning. Panic rippled through the settlement as alarms blared, lights flickered, and families scrambled for safety. Children clung to parents, elders prayed silently, and soldiers rushed to their positions, hearts pounding. Yet even in the chaos, humanity's core trait shone through: courage. The colony's defense officers, though outmatched in technology and numbers, moved with precision and purpose. They coordinated evacuations, activated shield generators, and guided civilians to safety with calm voices despite the terror all around. Captain Elena, aboard the Horizon, received the alert immediately. She felt a cold spike of anger, not at the aliens, but at the recklessness that had endangered innocent lives. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered, though her voice was steady. "We do not attack recklessly, but we do not allow harm to go unchallenged. Focus on defense, on protection. Evacuate, shield, and respond intelligently. Every life matters. Lieutenant Arun looked at her, wide-eyed. Captain, they are small drones. They are meant to test us, not destroy us. Should we fire back? Elena shook her head. No. We do not fight out of anger. We fight to protect. Our actions will show the galaxy who humans truly are. Calm, deliberate, courageous. Every life saved is our message. The Horizon moved into position, coordinating with nearby colonies to establish protective fields. Shields flared to life across the settlements, absorbing the minor assaults of the alien drones. Engineers rerouted power, scientists calculated trajectories, and defense officers guided civilians with a grace that defied fear. And yet, the emotional toll was immense. Families huddled in panic shelters, children crying, parents desperate. Soldiers fought exhaustion as alarms rang ceaselessly. The Horizon's crew worked tirelessly, their faces pale but determined. Captain Elena moved among them, a quiet anchor in the storm. Fear is natural, she said softly, but we will not be controlled by it. We act with courage, we act with purpose, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is who we are. That is humanity. On the alien flagship, the reckless commander watched with growing irritation as his plan failed to provoke chaos. He had expected fear, disorder, surrender. Instead, he saw humans coordinating, protecting, adapting. They did not fight blindly, but they did not flee. They did not panic. They faced the threat with intelligence, courage, and unity. "What is this?" he hissed to his subordinates. "They should crumble. They should be afraid. They are weak, and yet, they resist." "They are human," one officer replied, voice trembling. "They are not afraid of us. That is what terrifies me." Back on the Horizon, Elena watched the crisis unfold, her mind sharp, her heart heavy. She could not save every building, could not shield every civilian, but she could guide the response, coordinate protection, and demonstrate the resilience of humanity. And that she did, with every decision measured, every command deliberate, every action purposeful. Hours passed. The alien strike ended as quickly as it had begun, leaving minor damage but no loss of life. The reckless commander had misjudged humans. He had expected terror, submission, and weakness, but he had received calm courage instead. And that was worse than any defeat he could imagine. The humans had survived, protected their people, and demonstrated the qualities that no alien fleet could understand: unity, intelligence, and unbreakable resolve. The aliens had learned that humans did not fight out of anger or desperation. They fought out of purpose, out of a duty to protect, and out of a courage that transcended fear. Captain Elena allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The crew gathered on the bridge, exhausted but unbowed. Each of them had faced the emotional strain of the colony under attack, yet none had faltered. Tears had been shed in private quarters, fears had been faced silently, and hearts had beaten with both terror and pride. Humanity had passed a test not designed for war, but for courage, and they had passed with honor. Lieutenant Mara spoke softly, voice heavy with emotion. "Captain, they thought they could scare us, and instead, we showed them who humans are. We protect, we endure, we rise above fear. Even when they tried to force panic, we stood, steady." Elena nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "Yes. That is the first lesson they will never forget. Humans are not predictable. Humans do not give in to fear. We are unbroken. And every action we take, every life we save, every calm decision in the face of danger, teaches the galaxy what it means to confront us. Not with violence, not with rage, but with courage, unity, and intelligence." The reckless alien commander retreated to his quarters, furious and humiliated. He had made the first mistake, and it had cost him respect, authority, and confidence. He had underestimated humans, as many species had before, and like all who had done so, he had learned a painful truth: humans were not to be measured by size, firepower, or numbers. Humans were to be measured by something far more dangerous: their heart, their courage, and their unwavering resolve in the face of the impossible. As the Horizon drifted back into orbit, the colonies safe and intact, the crew exhaled a collective breath they had held for hours. The first real challenge had come and passed, and humans had proven that courage was stronger than fear, that intelligence was stronger than panic, and that humanity's greatest weapon was their unbreakable spirit. And somewhere in the dark void beyond, the galaxy took note. The humans had made a first impression not with destruction, but with something far more terrifying to any observer: unshakable courage, unbroken unity, and a heart that refused to bow to fear. The first mistake of the alien fleet had been made. And the consequences of that mistake would echo across the stars for generations to come. The galaxy did not change in a single moment. It never did. Change in the galaxy came slowly, like shadows stretching across distant stars. But after the failed attack on the human colony, something invisible yet powerful began to move through space. It was not a fleet. It was not a weapon. It was a story. And stories, in the galaxy, were more dangerous than war. The alien fleet withdrew slightly from human space, not retreating fully, but no longer pressing forward. Their formation shifted, cautious now, thoughtful. What they had seen did not match anything in their long histories. Humans had been tested. Humans had been provoked. Innocent lives had been threatened. And still, humans had not collapsed into fear or rage. They had protected their people with calm minds and steady hands. That alone was unsettling. On the horizon, Captain Elena Riker stood quietly at the observation window, watching the stars drift by. The crisis had passed, but its weight remained. She felt it in the silence of the bridge, in the tired eyes of her crew, in the unspoken understanding that something fundamental had changed. Humanity had crossed an invisible line. The galaxy was no longer just watching humans. The galaxy was talking about them. Lieutenant Arun approached her carefully. "Captain, long-range communications are lighting up. Not threats. Not warnings. Questions. Observations. Reports from neutral systems. They're sharing what happened at the colony." Elena closed her eyes for a brief moment. "So it begins," she said softly. "Not fear yet. Not respect either. But attention." Across distant systems, alien councils gathered. Species that had never spoken to humans before now reviewed recorded transmissions, sensor data, and first-hand reports. They replayed the footage again and again. A small human colony. An alien strike meant to frighten. And humans responding not with chaos, but with order. Not with panic, but with purpose. One ancient species, known for its vast knowledge and cautious nature, watched in silence. Their elders spoke in low, careful tones. They did not retaliate blindly. They did not flee. They protected their weak first. This is unusual. Another species, known for conquest, laughed nervously. Every species protects its own. The elder replied calmly, "No. Most species protect power. Humans protected life." That distinction spread like a quiet shockwave. Traders whispered about it in neutral ports. Explorers shared it over encrypted channels. Mercenaries paused when human space appeared on their maps. Something about humans made even the bold hesitate. On the horizon, the crew felt it too. Messages arrived from distant human colonies, words of gratitude, pride, and quiet awe. Families thanked the crew for standing firm. Children sent simple messages of hope. "Thank you for not being afraid," one message read. Elena read it twice, her throat tightening. She gathered the crew on the bridge. Faces tired, some marked with stress, others with quiet pride. "What we did," she said, her voice steady, "was not heroic in the way stories tell it. We did not charge into battle. We did not seek glory. We simply did what humans have always done. We protected each other. And now the galaxy is watching." Mara shifted uneasily. "Captain, what if that makes things worse? What if they decide we are too dangerous to ignore?" Elena met her gaze. "Then that will be their choice. Not ours. We cannot control how others see us. We can only control who we are." Far away, within the alien fleet itself, the consequences of the reckless commander's decision rippled outward. His authority weakened. Other commanders questioned him openly. "You said humans would break," one said coldly. "They did not." "They should have," he snapped. "They are small. Fragile." And yet, another replied, they endured. Without fear. Without hate. You underestimated them. And now the galaxy knows. That knowledge spread faster than any fleet could travel. A phrase began appearing in reports, in warnings, in quiet conversations: human space is different. Not forbidden. Not hostile. Different. Explorers adjusted their routes. Traders rerouted paths to avoid human borders, not out of hatred, but uncertainty. Mercenary groups refused contracts that involved testing humans. They don't fight like others, one captain said. They think. And that scares me. Even species that had once considered humans insignificant now hesitated. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the most advanced. But they were steady. And steadiness, in a galaxy ruled by fear, was deeply unsettling. Back on the horizon, the emotional weight of it all pressed down. Crew members found quiet moments to release what they had held inside. Some cried alone. Some stared at the stars. Some simply sat in silence, processing the truth that they had become symbols, whether they wanted to or not. Lieutenant Arun spoke one night, his voice low. Captain, do you think they will ever understand us? Elena thought for a long moment. Not fully, she said. We barely understand ourselves. But they don't need to understand us. They just need to know that fear does not control us. The alien fleet continued to observe from a distance. No more tests. No more probes. Just watching. Learning. And slowly, something unfamiliar crept into their calculations. Not hostility, not confidence, but caution. Humans were not enemies. But they were not prey either. A neutral alien envoy sent a quiet message to the horizon. No demands. No threats. Just a single line: your response was noted. Elena read it carefully. She understood what it meant. In the language of the galaxy, that message carried weight. It was the beginning of reputation. Human space, once ignored, now carried meaning. It was not loud. It did not announce itself with weapons. But it stood firm. And firmness, without aggression, was rare. On distant worlds, young alien scholars studied human behavior. They fear, one observed, but they do not obey fear. Another added, they are emotional, yet controlled. That combination is dangerous. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Humans did not need to dominate to be respected. They did not need to conquer to be feared. Their reputation grew not from destruction, but from restraint. As the horizon continued its mission, Elena looked once more into the endless dark. Humanity's name was moving through the stars now, carried by whispers and warnings. She felt pride, yes, but also responsibility. A reputation could protect, but it could also invite challenge. We must stay human, she told her crew quietly. No matter what the galaxy says about us. That is our strength. And somewhere far beyond, across countless systems, a silent agreement began to form. No species entered human space without careful thought. Not because humans threatened the galaxy, but because the galaxy finally understood something important. Fear did not rule humans. And a species that could master fear was a species no one wanted to test lightly. The reputation of humanity had begun to spread. And it was only growing stronger. The galaxy had begun to fear humans, but fear alone was never enough. Fear led to curiosity, and curiosity led to dangerous questions. The alien councils, fleets, and intelligence networks now focused on a single goal: find the human weakness. Every species had one. Some feared death. Some feared isolation. Some feared loss of power. Humans, they believed, must fear something too. From hidden stations and distant systems, alien observers watched human space carefully. They studied human history, behavior, and responses. They analyzed the horizon's actions again and again. No chaos. No blind anger. No surrender. That calm strength disturbed them deeply. A species that could not be easily scared was a species that could not be easily controlled. On the horizon, Captain Elena Riker sensed the shift before any alarm sounded. The tests were no longer direct. They were subtle now. Communication delays. Navigation interference. False signals planted near human borders. Not attacks, traps. Someone was searching for cracks in the human mind. Lieutenant Arun spoke quietly as data streamed across his console. Captain, they are not trying to hurt us anymore. They are trying to confuse us. To exhaust us. To make us doubt ourselves. Elena nodded slowly. That means they are afraid. And afraid enemies do not strike fast. They observe. They wait. Across human colonies, strange things began to happen. Supply routes were delayed by false distress calls. Navigation beacons flickered with incorrect data. Minor disputes between colonies were quietly encouraged by outside signals. The galaxy was probing not human ships, but human unity. The emotional weight grew heavier each day. Crew members on the horizon slept less. Colonies felt pressure. Not panic, but tension. A slow, grinding stress meant to wear humans down. Some alien strategists believed this was the true human weakness. Humans cared deeply. They formed bonds. They felt loss. Break the bonds, and humans would break. But they misunderstood something fundamental. Humans had survived on a harsh world long before they reached the stars. They had known division, disaster, and fear for centuries. Unity was not fragile to them. It was forged through suffering. Captain Elena gathered her senior crew in the briefing room. Faces were tired, but eyes were sharp. They are testing our endurance now, she said. They believe our emotions make us weak. They believe stress will break us. Mara spoke softly. Sometimes it feels like it might. Elena met her gaze. Yes. It feels that way. And that is the difference. We feel fear. We feel stress. But we do not obey it. The aliens escalated their efforts. A human research outpost received a false warning of an incoming fleet. Another colony received fabricated data suggesting betrayal from nearby systems. The goal was clear: make humans turn on each other. For a moment, doubt flickered. Some commanders questioned reports. Some civilians grew uneasy. Whispers spread. But then something unexpected happened. Humans talked. They verified. They shared data openly. They trusted each other instead of panicking. The alien observers watched in disbelief. Why are they not collapsing? One analyst asked. We are applying pressure. Emotional pressure. Another replied slowly, because this pressure is familiar to them. On the horizon, a breakthrough occurred. A young human analyst noticed a pattern in the false signals. The interference was coordinated, predictable, designed by minds that believed humans avoided emotional strain. Elena listened as the analyst explained. Then she smiled faintly. They think this is our weakness, she said. But it's not. Lieutenant Arun leaned forward. Then what is our secret weapon? Elena answered without hesitation. Resilience. Humans did not hide the truth. They broadcast clear, honest messages to their colonies. There is interference. Verify before reacting. Trust each other. Stay calm. No secrets. No manipulation. Transparency became their shield. The alien fleets did not understand this tactic. Most species ruled through fear or control of information. Humans did neither. They empowered their people. And empowered people were difficult to break. Emotionally, it was not easy. Humans still felt the pressure. Parents worried. Leaders felt responsibility. Crews felt exhaustion. But instead of breaking apart, they leaned on each other. Stories of cooperation spread. Small acts of kindness became acts of resistance. An alien commander watched a recording of a human colony sharing supplies calmly during a false crisis. They should be fighting, he muttered. They should be afraid. They are afraid, another replied. They just don't let it decide for them. Weeks passed. The secret attempts failed. Human unity held. The galaxy slowly realized the terrible truth. Human emotion was not a weakness, it was armor. On the horizon, the crew gathered quietly after a long shift. No celebration. Just shared silence. Elena looked at them with quiet pride. They searched for our secret weapon, she said. They thought it would be technology. or fearlessness, or violence. She paused. But it is none of those things. Mara asked softly, then what is it? Elena answered, her voice steady. We feel deeply. And we endure anyway. That realization spread through alien intelligence networks like a warning no one wanted to read. Humans could be stressed. Humans could be hurt. Humans could feel fear. And still, they would stand. The tests slowed. The false signals faded. Not because aliens gave up, but because they understood something frightening. Humans did not break under pressure. They adapted to it. They learned from it. They grew stronger. Somewhere in the darkness, a high-level alien council issued an internal note: human resilience exceeds predicted limits. Further psychological pressure is not advised. Captain Elena watched the stars again, feeling the weight lift slightly. They looked for our weakness, she whispered to herself. And instead, they found our strength. The galaxy had tried to break humans without firing a shot. It had failed. And now, the fear was changing. Because a species that could not be broken emotionally was a species no one truly knew how to defeat. The secret weapon of humanity had been revealed. And the galaxy would never forget it. Fear had spread across the galaxy, but fear always created two kinds of minds. Those who stepped back, and those who stepped forward. After watching humans endure every test without breaking, one alien faction reached a dangerous conclusion. Humans were becoming a symbol. And symbols, if left untouched, grew powerful. So they decided to act. Not with hesitation. Not with doubt. But with force. A single alien fleet, bold and confident, broke formation and crossed the invisible line no species had dared to cross before. They entered human space. Not slowly. Not carefully. They entered with intent. On the horizon, alarms rang softly, not panicked, but firm. Captain Elena Riker rose from her chair at once. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with focus. They've done it, she said quietly. The first attempt. Lieutenant Arun stared at the display. Captain, they ignored all warnings. They didn't probe. They didn't observe. They came straight in. Elena nodded. That means they believe fear will finally control us. The alien fleet moved with precision, their ships massive and silent, casting long shadows over human trade routes and distant colonies. They did not fire immediately. They wanted humans to see them. To feel small. To panic. Across human space, people watched the sky. Colonies received the alert. Civilian ships halted. Children were pulled indoors. Hearts beat faster. Fear was there, real and heavy. But panic did not come. Human command centers activated protocols practiced for years. Not war protocols. Protection protocols. Fleets did not rush forward blindly. Instead, human ships repositioned, forming layers of defense around civilian zones. Evacuation routes opened smoothly. Communication stayed clear. Calm voices filled channels that should have been full of screams. On the horizon, Elena addressed the fleet commanders. No hero moves. No reckless attacks. We do not show anger. We do not show fear. We show control. The alien commanders watched in confusion. Why are they not attacking? One demanded. Why are they not running? They are organizing, another replied slowly. The alien fleet pushed deeper, expecting resistance, expecting chaos. Instead, they found space empty where humans should have been vulnerable. Supply ships vanished into safe corridors. Colonies dimmed their signals. Human warships appeared not as a wall, but as a net. Then the trap closed. Human ships did not fire first. They redirected. Navigation fields shifted subtly. Alien sensors fed false depth readings. Communication lag increased, not enough to panic, just enough to confuse. The alien fleet slowed, formations loosening. Elena's voice was steady. Now. Human ships moved, not aggressively, but decisively. Small units separated alien vessels from each other, cutting lines of support without firing a shot. Energy fields flared, isolating sections of the invading fleet. The aliens tried to respond. Commands were issued. Orders conflicted. Panic crept in. This was not what they expected. Humans were not charging. Humans were controlling the battlefield. On one alien cruiser, a young officer shouted, "They're not attacking us." Why does that feel worse? Because it was worse. Human forces began disabling ships carefully, targeting propulsion, sensors, and weapons, never life support. Alien crews felt the fear humans had refused to show for weeks. They were trapped, surrounded by calm, silent human ships that did not hate them, and did not hesitate. On the horizon, Mara whispered, "Captain, they're scared." Elena watched the displays. "Yes," she said softly. "Not because we are violent. Because we are controlled." One alien ship broke formation and attempted escape. Human vessels responded instantly, cutting off its path with precise movement. No shots fired. No explosions. Just inevitability. Across the galaxy, observers watched in disbelief. This was not war as they knew it. Humans were not conquering. They were demonstrating. Showing that entering human space was not forbidden by threat, but by consequence. Inside the alien flagship, fear turned to realization. "We miscalculated," the commander said quietly. "They do not fight to win battles. They fight to end them." Minutes felt like hours. Then the human message came, transmitted calmly across every channel. "You entered our space. You endangered our people. We responded. You may leave. Now." No threats. No insults. Just certainty. The alien fleet withdrew, damaged, shaken, alive. Not destroyed. Not humiliated. But changed. As they crossed back over the border, silence followed. Human ships did not pursue. They returned to their positions, steady and quiet. On distant worlds, alien leaders sat in stunned silence. A single truth echoed through their thoughts: humans could have destroyed them. They chose not to. On the horizon, the crew finally exhaled. Some leaned back in their chairs. Some closed their eyes. Some felt tears they hadn't allowed themselves to feel until now. Lieutenant Arun spoke quietly. "Captain, we just stopped an invasion." Elena nodded. "No. We stopped a mistake." She looked out at the stars again. "And now, the galaxy will think very carefully before making another." The first attempt to enter human space had failed. Not because humans were cruel. Not because they were merciless. But because they were calm. Because they were united. Because they were human. And from that moment on, every species in the galaxy understood one thing clearly: the galaxy did not react with noise or chaos after the failed attempt to enter human space. There were no loud declarations. No sudden wars. No dramatic speeches. Instead, something far more important happened. The galaxy stopped. Across star systems, fleets slowed their patrols. Councils postponed expansion plans. Exploration routes were redrawn. For the first time in recorded galactic history, countless species paused their ambitions, not because of destruction, but because of understanding. The attempt had failed. Not violently. Not loudly. But completely. The alien fleet that had crossed into human space returned damaged in confidence, not in hulls. Their crews carried something heavier than defeat. They carried memory. Calm human ships. Silent coordination. Weapons that did not fire until absolutely necessary. Mercy that felt more frightening than rage. On the horizon, Captain Elena Riker stood in the quiet of the bridge. The stars outside looked the same as always, but she knew the galaxy had shifted. The moment had passed when humans were seen as a question. Now they were becoming an answer. Lieutenant Arun broke the silence. "Captain, incoming transmissions. Not threats. Not probes. Observations. Requests for clarification." Elena turned slowly. "From whom?" "From everyone," he said quietly. "Neutral systems. Old empires. Young species. Traders. Scholars. Even former aggressors. All were asking the same unspoken question: what are humans? In distant councils, alien leaders replayed recordings of the encounter. Human ships moving like a single mind. Defensive formations that protected civilians before military assets. Messages that contained no hate, no pride, only certainty. One ancient council elder spoke with a voice worn by centuries. They could have erased that fleet. They chose not to. That choice changes everything. Another replied, power that restrains itself is not weakness. It is judgment. The debate that followed was unlike any before. Humans were not conquerors. They were not submissive. They were not chaotic. They were something the galaxy had never learned how to classify, a species that controlled fear instead of spreading it. On human worlds, the emotional weight settled slowly. People watched the news feeds in silence. Families held each other. Not in celebration. In relief. Soldiers returned to posts. Workers returned to routines. Humanity did not cheer. Humanity breathed. On the horizon, the crew felt it deeply. Some had not slept properly in weeks. Some carried fear they had pushed aside. Now it surfaced quietly, in tears, in long stares at the stars, in hands that shook only after the danger passed. Captain Elena gathered them once more. What happened out there, she said softly, will be studied for generations. But remember this, we did not do it to teach the galaxy a lesson. We did it to protect our people. Never forget that. Mara nodded, her voice low. The galaxy is afraid of us now. Elena shook her head gently. No. The galaxy is thinking about us. That is different. Fear fades. Understanding lasts. Far away, within alien space, a bold proposal emerged for the first time. A suggestion no one would have dared to voice weeks earlier. Open dialogue with humans. Not to threaten. Not to test. To understand. Some opposed it immediately. They are too dangerous, one commander argued. They are only dangerous to those who force them to be, another replied. That sentence spread faster than any fleet. The turning point came quietly when a respected neutral species issued a formal advisory: human space is stable. Entry is not recommended without invitation. Not a warning. Not a threat. A recognition. Explorers changed routes. Expansion fleets halted at the edge of mapped space. Military planners removed human systems from simulation targets. The unspoken rule formed naturally: do not provoke humans. On the horizon, Elena received a message marked with the highest encryption priority. It was not a demand. Not a warning. Just words. We misjudged you. We are reconsidering. She read it once. Then again. She felt no pride. Only a quiet sadness for how much fear it had taken for the galaxy to pause and look honestly. Lieutenant Arun watched her. Captain, is this what respect looks like? Elena considered the stars. No. This is the beginning of it. Emotion rippled through the crew. They had faced fear without surrendering to it. They had protected without destroying. And now, without asking for it, humanity stood at the center of the galaxy's attention. Not as rulers. Not as victims. But as a boundary. A boundary others chose not to cross. In alien academies, new studies began. Human psychology. Human decision-making. Human restraint. Scholars struggled to explain a species that could be emotional and controlled at the same time. One young alien student asked, "Why do humans scare us?" The instructor answered honestly, "Because they do not need us to fear them. And that means they act by choice, not instinct." Back on the horizon, the ship resumed its exploration path. No escorts. No grand fleet. Just humans continuing forward, as they always had. Elena stood alone for a moment, watching distant stars. She felt the weight of leadership, of responsibility, of knowing that every future action would be magnified. Humans could not afford arrogance now. Or fear. "The galaxy is watching," she whispered. "So we stay human." The turning point had passed. The galaxy had learned something irreversible. Humans were not an obstacle to be removed. They were not a threat to be tested. They were a presence to be respected. And from that moment on, fear slowly began to change its shape. It became caution. Caution became distance. Distance became respect. The galaxy did not love humans. It did not trust them fully. But it understood one thing clearly. Whatever humans became next, they would choose it themselves. And that choice, that freedom from fear, was what truly terrified the stars. The galaxy had slowed, but it had not settled. Silence filled the space between stars, yet beneath that silence, tension still lived. Every species now knew the truth. Humans were not weak, not reckless, and not afraid. But knowing something was not the same as accepting it. There were still those who believed humans needed a final reminder, a clear boundary written in words no one could misunderstand. And humans understood that too. On the horizon, Captain Elena Riker stood before the main communications array. The bridge was quiet. Not tense. Focused. This was not a moment for emotion to rule, but emotion would shape it. Humanity had reached a point where silence could be mistaken for uncertainty. And humans had never survived by allowing others to guess their intentions. Lieutenant Tarun spoke softly. Captain, if we send this message, there's no going back. The galaxy will hear it. All of it. Elena nodded slowly. Yes. That is the point. Across human space, leaders gathered in shared channels. No shouting. No arguing. Just discussion. Calm. Honest. Emotional in its own way. Humans did not agree on everything, but on this, they stood united. The galaxy needed clarity. Not threats. Not diplomacy disguised as fear. Just truth. The message was prepared. Short. Simple. Clear. No species enters human space without invitation. We do not seek war. We do not seek control. But we will protect our people. Always. When the signal was sent, it did not explode across the galaxy. It flowed. Calm and steady, carried by relays and repeaters, translated into hundreds of languages. It reached worlds that had never seen a human. It reached fleets drifting in deep space. It reached councils that had once laughed at the idea of fearing a young species. And everywhere it arrived, the reaction was the same. Silence. On distant alien worlds, leaders read the message again and again. There was no anger in it. No challenge. That was what unsettled them most. Species that threatened usually shouted. Species that feared usually begged. Humans did neither. One alien admiral whispered, "They are not warning us of what they will do. They are reminding us of what they already did." In ancient halls of power, elders spoke quietly. "This is not a demand," one said. "This is a boundary." Some species felt relief. They had no intention of entering human space anyway. Others felt frustration. Their pride resisted the idea that a single species could declare such a line. But pride alone could not erase memory. The failed invasion. The calm response. The mercy shown. On the horizon, the crew waited as responses came in. Not replies, reactions. Fleets altered course. Exploration vessels turned away from human borders. Military simulations quietly removed human space from their targets. Mara exhaled slowly. They're listening. Elena watched the data scroll past. Yes. Because they finally understand what fear means. This fear was not panic. It was not terror. It was respect mixed with uncertainty. Humans were not monsters. That was the problem. Monsters were predictable. Humans were not. In alien academies, instructors changed their lessons. Do not provoke humans, they told students. They do not respond as others do. They do not escalate emotionally. They escalate deliberately. That sentence spread like a quiet law. But the warning was not only for aliens. Humans felt it too. On human worlds, people talked about it in homes and quiet places. Some felt proud. Some felt uneasy. Some feared what attention might bring. A young human asked their parent, "Does this mean we are dangerous?" The parent answered honestly, "No. It means we are responsible." On the horizon, Elena felt the weight of that responsibility deeply. The warning had drawn a line, but lines could protect or imprison. Humans would have to choose carefully what they became next. Lieutenant Arun stood beside her. "Captain, do you think they hate us for this?" Elena shook her head slowly. No. Some may resent us. But hatred fades. Memory does not. Deep within alien space, a high council reached a decision. It was not broadcast. It did not need to be. Human space is to be avoided. Not out of fear of destruction, but fear of consequence. That single internal note changed trade routes, exploration plans, and military doctrine. For the first time, the galaxy accepted a human-defined boundary without a single shot being fired. On the horizon, the stars looked the same. Space always did. But Elena knew the galaxy was different now. Humans had spoken, not loudly, not violently, but clearly. She gathered her crew one last time before resuming their mission. We did not threaten the galaxy, she said. We told it the truth. And now we must live up to it. The crew nodded. They understood. This was not an end. It was a promise. Far away, alien traders whispered warnings. Explorers marked their maps. Commanders paused before issuing orders. And in those pauses, humans found safety, not through fear, but through clarity. The warning echoed across the stars, not as a roar, but as a steady voice that refused to be ignored. Human space was closed to aggression, open to respect, and guarded by resolve. The galaxy had finally learned what fear meant. Not the fear of death. Not the fear of loss. But the fear of crossing a line, and discovering too late that humans had already decided who they were willing to be. And that decision, calm and unshakable, would shape the future of the stars. The warning had been delivered. The galaxy had heard it. Now came the part no one could predict. Recognition was never loud. It did not arrive with fleets or banners. It came quietly, through hesitation, through changed behavior, through choices that spoke louder than words. Human space remained calm. No new defenses were raised. No celebrations were held. Humans returned to their routines, but the weight of being watched never left. Every movement, every message, every silence was now studied by eyes across the stars. On the horizon, Captain Elena Riker felt it in the quiet moments. The sense that history was leaning forward, waiting to see what humans would do next. She stood on the bridge as the ship drifted between stars, her hands steady, her thoughts heavy. Lieutenant Tarun approached slowly. Captain, incoming transmission. Priority neutral channel. It's not hostile. Elena turned. Who is it from? Arun hesitated. The Valari Collective. The name carried weight. The Valari were ancient, careful, and respected. They rarely spoke directly to younger species. When they did, it meant something had already been decided. Put it through, Elena said. The image that formed was calm and controlled. A tall Valari envoy stood before a simple background. No guards. No weapons. Just presence. We acknowledge human space, the envoy said. And we acknowledge human restraint. The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was vast. The Valari did not flatter. They did not exaggerate. Recognition from them was earned, never given. You defended your border, the envoy continued, without seeking dominance. You issued a warning without hatred. That is rare. On the bridge, no one spoke. Even breathing felt loud. The envoy lowered its head slightly. We recognize humanity as a sovereign power. Not to be tested. Not to be pressured. But to be respected. The transmission ended. No demands. No conditions. Just recognition. The effect rippled instantly. Other species noticed. Neutral observers recorded it. Councils whispered. If the Valari had acknowledged humans, then pretending humans were insignificant was no longer possible. On distant worlds, debates changed tone. If the Valari recognize them, one leader said, then humans are not a risk. They are a reality. Others resisted. Pride does not die easily. They are still young, some argued. Still emotional. But disciplined, came the reply. And disciplined emotion is the most dangerous kind. On human worlds, the news spread quietly. No parades. No shouting. Just a shared understanding that something important had happened. Humans had not demanded recognition. That made it mean more. A veteran soldier watched the broadcast and whispered, "We didn't fight for this, but we held the line." A scientist closed her eyes and smiled softly. They finally see us. On the horizon, the crew felt it deeply. Not triumph, but validation. Fear had once followed them. Now it was something else. Distance. Respect. Caution. Mara broke the silence. "Captain, they're changing routes again. Closer this time. But still outside our space." Elena nodded. "They're learning where the line is." More messages arrived over the following days. Not challenges. Introductions. Observations. Some species sent simple statements, "We acknowledge your boundary." Others asked questions. Careful ones. Honest ones. One message stood out. Short and direct. "We once believed fear ruled the stars. Now we see discipline does." Elena read it twice. She felt a strange mix of pride and responsibility settle into her chest. Recognition was not safety. It was expectation. Humans would now be measured not by potential, but by behavior. Lieutenant Arun asked quietly, "Captain, are we ready for this?" Elena looked at the stars beyond the glass. "We don't get to choose when history arrives. Only how we answer it." Far away, an old alien historian updated a record older than many civilizations. Under the category Emerging Powers, a new line was written. Humans, stable, resolute, unpredictable only to those who provoke them. That single sentence would guide decisions for centuries. The galaxy had not embraced humanity. It had done something far more important. It had accepted that humans were no longer a problem to solve, but a presence to consider. On the horizon, the ship resumed its mission. Exploration continued. Curiosity remained. Humans did not retreat into isolation, nor did they push outward aggressively. They moved forward as they always had, carefully, stubbornly, together. Elena gathered her crew one final time before entering the next sector. "Recognition is not an ending," she said calmly. "It's a test. From now on, what we choose matters more than what we can do." The crew nodded. They understood. Across the galaxy, fear slowly lost its sharp edge. It became calculation. Calculation became respect. And respect became something new, cautious acceptance. Humans had not conquered the stars. They had not been crowned. They had been recognized. And sometimes, that was more powerful than any victory. Because recognition meant the galaxy was no longer asking what if humans become a threat? It was asking something far more serious. What happens if humans become leaders? The answer to that question had not yet been written. But the stars were watching closely. The galaxy had recognized humanity. That alone changed everything. But recognition was not peace. It was not safety. It was a pause before something greater. Everyone knew it. Humans felt it most of all. When the stars finally look at you, they expect an answer. Human space was quiet again. Too quiet. No alien fleets hovered at the border. No probes tested defenses. No threats echoed across channels. But silence, Elena Riker knew, was never empty. It was filled with decisions waiting to be made. On the horizon, the ship moved slowly through open space. Not toward danger. Not away from it. Just forward. As humans always had. Captain Elena stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the stars, her mind heavy with what came next. Lieutenant Arun broke the silence. "Captain, we're receiving a multi-source transmission. It's not a message. It's a request." Elena turned. "From who?" Arun swallowed. "From the galaxy." The words settled over the bridge like gravity. Multiple species. Old powers. Young civilizations. Neutral collectives. Even former enemies. All speaking through one shared channel. Not demanding. Not threatening. Asking. The message was simple, but the meaning was immense. Humanity stands at a crossroads. You have shown restraint where others showed violence. Strength where others relied on fear. The galaxy asks, what do you choose to be? No species had ever been asked that question before reaching dominance. Most were tested through war, through conquest, through destruction. Humans had reached this point without crossing that line. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. She thought of Earth, of cities and oceans, of people who would never see the stars, but whose lives depended on what happened here. She thought of the crew around her, of fear faced quietly, of strength held back deliberately. "This is it," Mara whispered. "They're not afraid anymore. They're waiting." Across human space, leaders gathered. Not behind walls. Not in secrecy. Open channels. Shared voices. Scientists. Soldiers. Farmers. Explorers. Humanity had learned long ago that survival was not decided by a few, it was carried by many. Some argued for distance. "We should stay isolated," they said. "We protect our space and let the galaxy solve its own problems." Others argued for strength. "We should lead," they said. "Order requires power." But a third voice rose quietly. The voice of memory. "We survived because we chose restraint. Because we protected before we dominated. If we abandon that now, we become what they feared." The debate was emotional, honest, painful. Humanity had scars from its own past. From times when power was misused. From lessons written in loss. On the horizon, Elena listened as the discussion unfolded. She did not speak at first. When she did, it was not loud. "We don't need to rule the galaxy," she said. "And we don't need to hide from it. We only need to be who we proved we are." The decision was reached without celebration. Without victory speeches. Just agreement. Humanity would not conquer. Humanity would not withdraw. Humanity would stand as a stabilizing presence. A boundary. A voice. The response was prepared. Not long. Not dramatic. Honest. "We do not seek to rule the galaxy. We do not seek to reshape it. We choose to protect our people and respect others. We will stand against aggression. We will answer cooperation with cooperation. This is our choice." When the message was sent, it carried no force behind it. Only meaning. The galaxy received it slowly, carefully. Species analyzed every word, every pause. And for the first time in galactic history, fear did not dominate the response. Relief did. One alien leader whispered, "They could have become tyrants. They chose not to." Another replied, "That choice makes them more powerful than any empire." Routes reopened. Carefully. Diplomats approached human space, not with fleets, but with single ships. Scholars requested exchanges. Traders asked permission, not demanded access. On human worlds, people watched quietly. Some cried. Some smiled. Some simply nodded. Humanity had not lost itself. That mattered. On the horizon, the crew stood together as new stars appeared ahead. No alarms. No weapons charged. Just exploration. Lieutenant Tarun exhaled deeply. "Captain, we did it." Elena shook her head gently. "No. We chose. And now we live with it." She looked out at the endless dark, now filled with possibility. Humanity had not become the most feared species in the galaxy. It had become the most trusted to choose wisely. And that trust carried weight heavier than fear ever could. The galaxy moved on, changed forever. No species entered human space without invitation. Not because they were forbidden, but because respect demanded it. Humans continued forward. Curious. Careful. Unbroken. They did not claim the stars. They did not bow to them. They walked among them. And the galaxy, at last, understood what fear truly meant. Not terror. Not destruction. But the quiet realization that humanity had power and chose restraint. That choice echoed across eternity. And that is why no species ever entered human space again. Not out of fear of what humans were, but out of respect for what they chose to be.